All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the First Look Show. We've got week 14 on the horizon here. It's moving quickly, as we always say. We know what it is, but there's still lots of good football left. This week, going to be some fun conversations. Someone was throwing it in the Discord earlier. It looks like backup quarterback fest. So they said, which one of these guys is going to win somebody a Millie Maker? And the list is long, so we'll get to it. Got my guy James, Degenerate75 here with me as always. We'll break it down as we do. A little bit of a recap. Then we'll go game by game, try and get out of here in an hour. Start a little bit later today, 1 hour behind. I did have my daughter's Christmas concert, so I appreciate you guys bearing with us and sticking around. I know it's not exactly lunchtime for everybody like it normally is, but if you're here with us, we do appreciate the support. Smash the like on the way in. Subscribe to the channel. When we get to 5,000 subscribers, we will be giving away an annual membership to SHIPITNation.com. James, bringing you in, my guy. What's going on, man? How you doing?
First take is literally every time we come in and we do that intro, I'm just head bobbing. I hope my banjos on my show make people head bob as much as I head bob to the Ship It Nation intro. That was my big takeaway from the start of this video.
I might have to start every show now. I hope you enjoyed that intro, you motherfathers, and
motherfathers.
You always tell them about the outro. So yeah, I like it. We like our music coming in. I like your banjos going out. I like everything that we've got going on together. And if people don't know, we've spoiler alerted a lot of things. We've already talked about the trip to the Waste Management Phoenix Open in February that we're going to be down there. We're working out some details, but we're going to be there for sure. A lot of stuff is already worked out. We're working on finalizing some stuff. Obviously, you find your own way down there, but we'll be around. We'll have some stuff. We'll have a couple nights at least where we're out and about that you can come meet with us. We'll be at the course, all that stuff. Want to hang out with as many of you as possible at that. That's in Super Bowl weekend in February at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So we'll be down in Arizona. And then a lot of people are already getting excited for it. We've got this show. So what do we got? 14, 15, 16. Week 17 will be the last week of this show. It's actually going to be on the 27th that week. It's going to be on the Wednesday with the holidays and stuff that are going on. But it won't be long that we're away, because coming back on the 8th, we will be doing we'll be kicking off the season actually for Sony Open is where we're starting it for ourselves, doing a show together for PGA all season long, just like this one, rotating channels. So truly excited for that, man. What else do you got to say? What else are you thinking? Any recap from last week? Anything you want to go through before we get into it?
Well, I felt so good heading into this last week. I knew I was going to get owned. Fucking Sam Howell. What a donkey dick I am. So I got owned. But really, my big takeaway from this last week was I saw on Twitter you won well over $100,000 these past 2 days. And I thought, what is wrong with this guy? Who wins that kind of money in December? Now you have no time to find write-offs for that massive amount of money that you are now going to have to pay taxes on. Disappointment.
And then you found out the truth, right? The people that make fun of us, the only reason we can be good at DFS in Canada is because we don't have to pay any taxes on that stuff. So that's kind of the setup that we've got here. So unless you're, it's a whole nother story. We're not going to get into that on here, but just to say it, that is the difference maker. So it's definitely nice to have those wins. I do appreciate all the support out there from everybody. Been talking about it too much this week. It's been awesome. But like I always say, nobody cares, work harder. That's not only when you lose. No one wants to hear you bitch, complain. They got the same bad beat story, trust me. But when you win, these motherfathers, as James would say, are coming after you again, looking to get back at you in the next time out. And you want to stay in that winner's circle. You got to continue to get back to it. That's what the First Look is all about. Get some general ideas. I, by the way, was on Sam Howell as well. And he's never the problem. Sam Howell plays like shit and puts up 21 points on DraftKings.
Right. But when you have him double stacked, you're fucked because he didn't throw it to anybody. He just decided he was Michael Vick.
It's when you go to Logan Thomas, like I always do. It's when you go to Curtis Samuel because you think he's a god now, and he does not become that again. And Terry McLaurin made fun of himself, said he was the cardio god out there just running it all game long and getting not a single point. So it happens. We keep chasing it, but it is interesting that the guy plays like what you would perceive to be the worst possible game and still breaks 20 DraftKings points on a season where it's been hard to find good quarterbacks. And this week we got some good quarterbacks for sure, but we got some backups as well. So it's going to be interesting to hear your takes on it as we get through it, because there's expensive quarterbacks and then there's a lot of cheapies. So anything else on last week you want to get to? If not, we can hop right into the first game. I think I'm going to do it. You want me to bring up Solver this week? Is that easier? We'll just do it that way.
Yeah, I got Solver up on my screen right now, so that keep us in the same order. But yeah, whatever.
Let's do that. No, I like that. That's
the only thing I want to say about last week is I want one of those things from Men in Black where they're like, look right here, and then they go, poof, and you forget everything that just happened. That's what I want right now. 1990s movie reference. I hope like 7 of y'all got that.
We know what it is, the little machine unit. We can go look it up if you haven't. You guys can go look this up as well, shipitnation.com. We'll get this stuff out of the way quick for you guys, but did bring up a new code. So if you want to use the code TRY20, this is just for this week only. If you don't have it, we're back every week. You can use DGen75. That's the other code that we've got going there. So just to set that up. And then James, talk to us a little bit about this because you got a lot going on your site as well. And we always talk about it just being the perfect pairing. You can mix the two together, have pretty much everything you need at still a fraction of the cost of what most places are charging in some cases for just a single sport.
Yeah, what I would really tell you guys to do is, like, if you're wanting to do any football for the rest of the season, it's a great time to get the football monthly package because there's all these crazy college football slates that, like, nobody is keeping up with all these injuries. Of course, we're still doing the showdown breakdown and the Rosetta Stone for NFL. But what I'll tell you is really be looking out for that first week of January. I'm going to allow you to lock in the golf prices because I really am proud of our PGA product and it's only improving this year. So be looking out for that first week. Lock in that low monthly or yearly price, and then after that, it's going up it's still going to be way cheaper than what all these other hucksters are charging, but it's going to go up. So lock in that price come first week of January if you're a PGA tryhard.
Yeah, and use promo code SHIPIT if you guys want to go check that out as well. So
all
set there. Let's go to the games here. We're going to try and get this through in an hour. The first game up is going to be Tampa Bay, Atlanta. And it looks like, let me see here. This is the challenge. We're going back and forth. What I usually do, 39.5 is the total. So give me your thought. 40, it looks like on Solver here. So give me your take on this one. First thoughts on Tampa Bay, Atlanta.
Sneaky game. Anytime it's in the dome, I'm always like, it could go off. I think that's just something wrong with my brain that anytime it's a dome game, I always think it could be sneaky. I never loved Desmond Ridder and the Falcons, but he has had Millie Maker winning upside this year. And, Baker Mayfield, as much as I've always shit on him for never being a fantasy quarterback, he's really not that bad. I mean, he didn't have a great week last week, which I thought it was a pretty good matchup against Carolina. But, I think I'm ready to go. I'll go back to him. If he's going to keep throwing the ball over 30 times and he's got weapons, I'm in.
Yeah, so this is the thing, too. What's funny is, it's the prime example we always talk about. But last week, really did nothing for himself. But then you go look, and, the guy just has eyes for Mike Evans. It's insane what he's doing. But, 12 targets, 7 receptions, 162 yards and touchdown, 32 out of him. Really nothing at a Baker, right? That's kind of all that he got. But it makes a guy like Evans extremely valuable when I think he pretty much scored the same, just slightly under, what Tyreek Hill did. And Tyreek Hill was $9,600. $7,700 is a bit of a price adjustment, but it's still not even $8,000. He really didn't do anything with Godwin. Godwin actually had to rush one in at the end. He had a 0 right to the end. He was on my 100K lineup, so I needed that touchdown at the end. I got there with him, but man, I don't see much else. I think people do tend to prefer Baker, but we saw earlier in the season, like you said, how often you can see a guy like Ridder work. So I was just trying to look at it from that perspective. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with this game before we move on to the next one, which is?
So him running in that touchdown sounds like you got pretty lucky there at the end. So it's almost like God led you to that win. Is that what you're trying to say there?
Oh, man, the play on words. What a good one. Yes,
that's a double pun. How many of those do you get in a week? Not many.
Those. Everybody knows that's my thing. I love those. Glad you brought that one up. I'll tell you, it actually got crazier than that. You want to talk about good luck and just running good? I needed a 2-yard touchdown from Devontae Smith. You remember what team he plays for, right? Let me check my notes. The Eagles, and they run the tush push every time from there, 3 times, 4 times in a row, whatever it takes to get it in. And instead, they threw a 2-yard touchdown to the guy I absolutely had to have a touchdown from for the difference of $85,000. So can't complain about very much. I can tell you that from that position.
Tambo runs good. He runs real good.
Yeah, that's good. I like that word choice. Let's move on. Let's go to my favorite team, the Baltimore Ravens, at home against the Rams here. Get your first take on this game. What's your first thoughts when you see this one? I'm just looking up some of the matchup stuff. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens, pretty good all season long. They kind of, I think, what's the setup here? They play this week, and then the next week they play when do they play the Jags? Next week? Yeah, next week.
Tambo, I live NFL 1 week at a time, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I was just trying to see it here. Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, Lamar, anytime Lamar gets under $8,000, my ears always perk up, right? I will say this about Lamar. I am pretty interested in him with that, a 24-point total. That's pretty solid. The key is I think I only want to skinny stack Lamar, and it's getting pretty damn hard to identify who's the guy to skinny stack him with, right? He's got all his wide receivers back. Maybe Isaiah Likely, I think, would probably be the one, because that kind of, at $3,500, that makes Lamar a lot more affordable. You get, 18 points out of Likely, you get 28 out of Lamar, maybe he runs one in, and all of a sudden that little skinny stack could get you there, and I don't even think I would want to have a Rams run back, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge. It's funny enough, we made fun of Sam Howell. Look at these numbers Lamar puts up. 12, 15, 15, 23. Sam Howell does literally nothing pretty much except run some touchdowns in, and he just absolutely crushes. Someone said OBJ revenge game. My guy, go collect. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But that's the challenge. Like you said, stacking him up here. Last week, Kieran Williams, not many people liked him because of the matchup versus Cleveland. I know it's like not really anything, but we've seen this against Cleveland, who not just him personally, but other guys versus Cleveland, and also teams that played against Dallas this season, where they kind of just pick off, if you want to even call it a weakness, the one spot that they can kind of get beat. And the one spot that Baltimore Ravens have given up fantasy points to on the season is the running back position. He's still getting the work. He's still got plenty of it. I know there's going to be some talk around this game around Nakua, if he's healthy or whatnot. I saw the coach speak stuff today, and they've already talked about it. McVay said he's just going to take it easy on him, but he expects that he will play. Again, still doesn't really matter to me as much. It's not really the spot that you get after them here. And the workload since Williams has been back has been great, right? Mm-hmm. He got even more attempts last week. He's still got the targets again. We really just want those opportunities. And at 7,300, if you did want to get a piece of this game and a guy there, I know it's tough, but especially if you expect them to be trailing, I could see them just using him plenty, try and keep Lamar off the field and try and play catch up as well.
To me, Puka Nacua playing is directly related to my interest in Kieran Williams. I want Puka and Kupp out there, right? Not because I think they're going to be these great usage monsters that are going to do anything, but they're going to make the defense have to respect that Rams passing game. And in that case, that means, in my opinion, probably more drop-offs for Williams and probably more opportunities to find lanes in the running game. So if Nacua is active, I actually do like old Kieran Williams, who's always bitching about shit.
Yeah, I like that call too. And I think that is important. Little things you have to look at this time of the season. One other quick note, not to do with these games that I'll put in a second because we're going to breeze through these, but the setup of like last night's game, you saw like, what was the name? Chase Brown getting a bunch of carries all of a sudden. You saw, I know Parker Washington was more of a Kirk situation, but he was kind of in there a little bit at the beginning too. And I know he takes punt returns and I could see that, but just to say it, when we are getting a little bit later in the season, some teams are starting to give guys a little bit more of a shot. And then this is just funny. Someone made me go check this. Shout out to Ross. He won the hoodie yesterday. Congrats, Ross. But he goes, oh, damn, there was a trade in Live Golf. I wanted to see who Matt Wolf got traded for. And sure enough, it's David Puig for Carlos Ortiz. Who gives a shit? So nothing else for me in this game. I guess one interesting thing, I don't know if this will happen or get there, but did you hear like Zach Ertz? I guess the Ravens are like high on the list. It's like the Ravens, the Eagles, maybe there's like one other team or something like that. But I guess if Zach Ertz somehow signed with the Ravens this week, maybe we see him in there, but I don't know. I don't see much else with that game. Last time, James, that we had this game, Chicago-Detroit, I think it was King of the Beach week when you told me I should just play Fields and go off, and he did, and I did not listen to you, so I'm going to listen to you this time and hear what you have to say, but obviously Detroit coming off, pretty big win. I know it's only the Saints, but, getting out there on the road, kind of needing one. Like this team is a lot higher hopes than what people have seen in some of these recent games. Now, last week, go and get the win is nice to see. Laporta, a big game. But just to say it here, what's your thoughts on this one? Because the total is what, 40-ish, 40 and a half or something?
Yeah,
so,
which has got to be the lowest total all year for the Lions, right? Like anytime the Lions are in a game, you just set the minimum at 45. Here's some free advice. Don't play Justin Fields this week. It's just, I know the Lions tend to give up a lot of points, but that was in a dome and perfect conditions when he was going to be low owned. This week, I'm already looking at some early weather for the Chicago area, and it's looking like 50% chance of rain and windy as hell. It literally is the Windy City. Cincy. This game just reeks of slog to me, which feels so weird to say about a Detroit's Lions game. But everybody forgets the Lions are a run forward team. They run the ball first and then pass. Everybody thinks because they score these points that they're like this, like throw it all over the field 1999 Rams. That's not who they are. They're going to run the shit out of the ball, and I think this game is going to be about what Vegas says, 21-17, and that's not a game that I'm trying to go get these pay up options to get a piece of that game.
Yeah, and just of note, too, our guy IlneyFan13 says, watch out for winter weather in the outdoor games. Definitely true. We are into December now, so something to keep an eye on. 100%. We'll cover that on our streams later in the week, both of us. But you said it. Detroit just wants to run the ball. That's all Campbell wants to do. And Montgomery has been the guy still. I know everybody loves Gibbs, and we've got to see a couple good flashes out of him, a couple big games back here. I know he's disappointed lately, so think about how the game flow goes, but I definitely do agree with you. I think no matter what, and it is a great matchup on the ground for Detroit, where I think they just do try to get Montgomery to 20 carries again and just hope that it works and see what happens. And then, of course, you can have guys from Chicago like a Field scrambling the other way, but what will it actually amount to? I'm not sure. Any other thoughts on this one? If not, we can move on to Indy.
I would just say this: just the sloggier the game is, the more I think that favors David Montgomery over Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think that's a particularly hot take, but I do think it's one that needs to be stated.
Yeah, and every time they say this, the revenge game for Monty. Yeah. Just go back here. What was it? Revenge game last time was 12 carries for 76 and a touchdown and a couple targets for 17 points. So, every game's a revenge game for him to go back and play against them. But yes, 'tis true. So we'll go on from there. Let's go Indy Cincy. Browning, man, got the job done last night. Looked good.
I was all over him. I was like, guys, he had a pulse the last time he was out. Like, he is not that bad of a quarterback. A lot of these backup quarterbacks we're seeing, they blow donkey dick. He does not. He's like a serviceable quarterback, and more important than that, he has weapons all around him. Jamar Chase is still probably the second best wide receiver in the NFL. T. Higgins is a fringe top 10 wide receiver. Joe Mixon is probably a top 10 running back, and they have like a good offensive structure. So like, if he can just come in and have a pulse, he's going to be able to find results.
Yeah, and just going back to the other game, people asked about like Roschon Johnson stuff. We'll have to wait and see as we get closer. It's been really tough to figure out. I thought had it pegged, and then like I said, because maybe it's later in the season and obviously not much going on for the Bears, you see it. But before, what was happening was it was just Herbert or Foreman, whoever was in. Obviously, Foreman's been injured right now, but it was Herbert when they're up in the game. It was Roschon Johnson when they're down. Last game, it looked like they went a little bit more Roschon Johnson. But again, there's so many games. By the way, this is an 11-game slate, not a 10. There is a lot of options that you can get to here. I'm not going to be looking to try and figure out too many situations where, again, but if you get it right, you get all this. It's still, there's other situations that you may not have to figure out, and you can still find your way there. So it's not really something I specialize in. I don't try and find all the diamond in the rough plays as much as make lineups that make sense.
Leave that stuff for showdown. Leave that for showdown.
Yeah, where if you get Parker Washington correct, you win $500,000 outright and ship the slate and lead it the whole way and take off into the night with it. So that's the kind of angles that you could take there. If you could somehow peg a Chase Brown, take a shot on him because there was some coach speak on him last night, and that kind of made sense. But yeah, back to this game. Speaking of Browning and Chase, Jamar Chase, anything that you want to do here in this game, the interesting part is on paper, I don't know what the weather will be like in Cincinnati this week. We'll have to see. But this one has the similar total, James, to all these other games, but they both are really bad on defense. Like they can both exploit each other in many ways here. And it's Minshew versus Browning. And it's something that where you could actually see they're 52, 5,400. Like, I don't know if this will end up being sneaky, but Pittman's been on fire. We've been waiting for a big downs game. Higgins was getting back into the mix last night. Chase crushed. Like, there's definitely options here that you can go to in this game. So give me your thoughts.
I have the right answer right here. The answer is Zach Moss, right? We've already seen this. Remember when Devin Singletary was like 4,800 and he was the must-play piece, and then he just destroyed everybody's dreams with like a 4-point week? Then the next week he gets priced up around $1,000, and now nobody wants to play him, and he goes for a 30 burger, right? That wasn't too long ago all that happened. Zach Moss was in the 4,000s. I think he was legit 75, 80% owned in some of my contests. Shits the bed, doesn't do anything. Now he gets the price up. He's still going to have the same role, but now nobody's going to play him. I will definitely be going back to Zach Moss after that flop lag.
Oh, for sure. And also, the one thing I want to wait and see, though, is how many others follow. I've been saying this forever. I make up my own shit in terms of DFS. I've been around the space enough. I don't care if people like it, hate it, whatever. I always make it up. Like, I call a 1-5 in Showdown. I call that means the 1 is the captain from the other team and the 5 are from the other side. Most people don't say that. That's not how the other sites read. I also don't agree that flop lag is automatically when they have a good week after a bad week. I think it has to be when ownership doesn't trail with it again. If you're just going to play the same guy. So, for example, my point on that is if Zach Moss comes in at 30% or 25% this week because so many people chase, but not 60%, I don't really call it flop lag as much as the industry's caught up and caught on. It's usually, to me, flop lag is when nobody comes with it and they say, screw that guy, I don't want him. There is enough sentiment, even on a Tuesday, out there right now explaining the 19 attempts, the 3 targets, the 5 carries he got within the 5-yard line, that I do wonder if it comes along. But check this out on the screen. This looks like a money start. Just stop there. Browning,
I don't hate it.
Moss, like Chase is 7,600. I don't care how many guys are out there with him. That is, I mean, he can beat these guys.
50% chance of rain at 20-mile-an-hour winds in Cincinnati, though. Early forecasting.
I hate that. But then you know what? I don't hate this. You could just flip it around. Like Minshew can rush it in. He can check it down to Zach Moss, who can get through it. Pittman gets all these short catches and then does whatever he wants with them. And I don't know if this is actually true. I know you can go look this stuff up. So when I'm honest, if I don't know, I'll just tell you. But I did hear some chatter. And then last night, it looked like they were setting up Chase Moore in these short pass routes where then he was just going and doing something with it. And I don't know if that makes sense to me. I don't know why Zach Taylor wouldn't do that more when you have Browning, but just get the ball in the best player's hands and let him do the work.
He had 4 targets, 4 catches for 7 yards on the first drive. He had 4.7 points on the first drive with 7 yards receiving. That's insane. I get
this too, but I still even think that's crazy. Like even again, I guess they just automatically look like Browning sucks, so you can't have a price up on Chase. But yeah, this is some interesting stuff to me just to kick it off. Let's move on. Lots more stuff we can talk about as we go throughout. Gonna have to wait on this. I don't think it looks good. Looked to me like a high ankle sprain for Lawrence. I know some stuff came out this morning. They did say ankle sprain, but it didn't seem like, again, I was at my daughter's concert that they gave more. Did they say high ankle sprain or did they say anything about the timeline that we're looking at? It says, yeah, okay, it did say high ankle sprain 1 hour ago at the concert. Then it says status unclear for week 14. I can't imagine seeing him in there, man. Like that is just no chance.
High ankle sprains is like 2 to 3 weeks at best, and then even then it still lingers. It's just it's bad. It's a real bad injury, especially for a quarterback who needs that that plant to drive the ball to his receiver. So not great, Bob. I would say less than 10% he plays this week.
And so I would say I'm with you there. I mean, I don't even think it's a hot take. It seems pretty obvious. That's why I wanted to look it up just to make sure. But in this game, what that would mean is we got every 16-year-old boy, Billy Madison style's favorite quarterback. Because did you know his last name is Beat Hard? You get it? So you got to say it like that, and everybody thinks it's hilarious. Like I just don't get it. But yeah, either way, you can get this guy in. Kirk was announced this morning. I saw it. He's going to be out at least 2 to 3 weeks. It sounds like it's not going to be good. I think it was his groin or whatever. He got hurt on that first catch. So $6,400 Ridley. I don't know about this, but we'll see. And then Zay Jones down at 30.
I'd be more interested in Zay Jones myself. But to me, look at this total. It's got to be. Is that the lowest total we've seen all year? I'm seeing 30.5 total. That's crazy.
I think this Thursday is 30 and even might be 29.5 in some places. So,
wow.
Pretty insane. But that at least makes sense.
The problem is the one that I really like is going to be so obvious. Give me some Jerome Ford and the Browns defense, which I imagine is going to be teetering on 40% owned at $3,000 this week.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be possible. What are they at here? 3,000 even?
Yeah, that's just so cheap. So cheap at home against at best a marginal quarterback that people are going to eat that up.
Yeah, what's Ford been doing here too? I want to see him because I feel like we've seen a little more of him lately. He's still getting the target.
I mean, he's incredibly consistent, but he's also, seems a little, if you're ever going to get a 20-point week out of him, he's going to be very touchdown dependent. But he does seem to get you 12 points every week with or without a touchdown.
And we just saw last night shorter week. We also just saw last night what Mixon was able to do, what Chase Brown was able to do. This is just a cheap pairing. I'm looking at like Elijah Moore as well at 4,500, but Zay Jones is in there. You could go Ford, and then you could put in a Zay Jones and then get off that Cleveland D, or you could just go forward with the Cleveland D and hope that that's why he's getting all the opportunities to run and do his thing. Don't hate that. Do you have any interest in Flacco at all before we move on?
Not in this game, man. I mean, he was just as serviceable as I thought he would be this past week, but that was a great scoring environment for him. I feel like this is going to be the anti-scoring environment, so I think I can wait on Flacco.
And I guess one more thing, we'll see as it shakes out for the week to go. But yeah, this point is brought up. We talk about this in NBA all the time over at SHIPIT Nation in the Discord. Like everyone always thinks value means cheap, right? I need a value play. That means you have to go right down to 3K. It's not necessarily true. Like a guy can have great value at $6,400 if his other wide receiver is out. If there's a possibility they just hone in on him, all that, you can still get a good value play in Ridley if nobody's on him and the week goes on and you could fit him. 6,400, it's fine. Right now, I kind of like this little secondary stack, just messing around with things as we go along. Let's keep going. Let's go to Carolina, New Orleans. And I don't know what the plan is here with Derek Carr. Like, it sounds like he's a little bit, I guess, whatever happened last game, right? He got banged up or whatever. And then they've got Taysom Hill.
He is a car. He does get banged up. Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just making a lame joke. I said he's a car. They get banged up. Which is not as – which, by the way, if you want two lame jokes in a row, Tambo, just a minute ago you said what a great value is. I know I'm hungry because I instantly thought of, like, Walmart mac and cheese. That's the great value brand.
I'm pretty hungry, too. That's the difference.
That's right where my mind went. That and I'm fat. Okay, I'm sorry.
James is here with me, and they want to know your take on Jameis. So if somehow we got him in there, what's your thoughts?
Look, I'm going to tell you right now. If Jameis Winston is declared the starter, I don't care what his ownership is. I will play all the Jameis. There was a pass last week where he just forces it into double coverage. The defender tips it up, and then Olave catches it and runs it down to the 1. And I'm like, this is what I need from my quarterback. Just a gunslinger, YOLO, I don't give a shit. And that's what Jameis Winston is. He just slings it around. That's what gets him all those pick sixes. That's why he gets sacked, because he tries to do too much. But we don't give a shit, because at fantasy, he often gets himself into a script where he is throwing the ball all over the field, and then he has to now he has to throw it all over the field because he's behind and he's getting 45, 50 pass attempts, and you want him trying to force it into those tight windows. And so I'm telling you right now, if he is the quarterback, I will tell you right now, he will be my stack this week.
All right, so there it is. Last time it was Fields. This time you're telling me it's Jameis if he's starting. So we'll wait and see how that shakes out as the week goes on. But obviously we got a good spot here in the Dome in New Orleans, coming off a loss to the Lions. And here was the Kamara workload. I know there was some talk last week because no Shaheed and everything else that they were thinking going in. I also had him in my lineup for the 100K. It was awesome. I like that little setup there. People didn't like the matchup, but I was thinking if everyone's playing Olave and A.T. Perry on even, I consider both sites when I'm thinking about that. Like, it doesn't matter if they're played somewhere else. No one's really playing Kamara. And sure enough, 8 targets is the most he's got since back in week 7. Could you see something like that again here? And then already it's a good matchup on the ground on paper against Carolina. So that's kind of the last thoughts here in this game with him.
I think Kamara gets downgraded a little bit if Winston's starting. Winston's just notorious for not checking it down to his running backs as much as the others, but there is always a script that Kamara could come in and just run it. He's actually looked pretty effective running the ball and rushed it in for 2 touchdowns, which was a kick in the dick. But, he got pretty lucky on one of those rush touchdowns that Taysom Hill, literally couldn't stick the ball out at the 1-yard line. What's his price tag this week? Let me see. If he's over 8,000, I'm out. 8,200 steep. I mean, I liked him this last week. I thought he made a lot of sense because everybody thinks, the wide receivers are out. That usage is going to go to wide receivers, and they never think how that usage can go to a running back out of the backfield getting more targets and being more involved in the game, and that's what happened with Kamara.
It must be behind on the stream here a little bit because you just spoke through this, and that's perfect. That's what the chat's wondering. You just answered it perfectly, my friend. There's a couple spots here that we could see this next game, Houston and the Jets. Breece Hall last week, I didn't even see what his final ownership got to. He sounded like he was going to be chalky. I kept saying all week, I was like, I don't see how he can be extreme chalk when there's all these other running back plays. I don't know if anyone has it in the chat, if they can remember what his ownership was in the big $20 or something, but Singletary is a guy you brought up from earlier in the season. He was another guy I think people wanted in that matchup last week against Denver a little bit. Again, not much ownership versus what people were thinking, but low total here in this one again. And then the thought process on just breaking this one down because what's the situation? Is like Boyle got dropped completely after 2 games. Zach Wilson says he doesn't know if he's reluctant to start because he's worried about like a late season injury or something like that. I'm sure there's weather here too. It's in New York. This one here is, I don't know if I'm too crazy about it. What do you see with this game?
I think Dameon Pierce is a guy that's sneaky here, right? He like if you watched last week, he looked good. Like he looked explosive and good like he did last year, and he really was getting the majority of the running touches, right? And if this is going to be a slow sloggy game, those are the kind of games I like to target running backs because, like they're just so much more likely to get maybe those 18 to 20 carries and to put one in the end zone, right? So Dameon Pierce would be a guy I would be looking to target over Devin Singletary simply just because of how I think this game's going to play out.
Yeah, this seems insane too to me, like $4,000 for the Texans D. I know that it could be whoever. We don't know who it's going to be yet, but man, that just seems like a lot for that defense going into New York and all that stuff. So I don't know. Again, they're favorited. They're on the road still. It's fine, but I could see just going the other way, to be honest. Like,
I think the Jets at 2,900. I mean, they'll get after them. A lot of people are going to want to pay up for $4,000 Houston defense, but the Jets are a run forward team. And if this game is 13-10, what's the Texans' upside for a $4,000 defense? They're not going to get a ton of sacks. They're not going to get any pick sixes. They're not going to have a ton of chances because the Jets could probably throw as few as 20 times in this game. And when you're not throwing the ball, there's very few chances for points.
Yeah, and then what about Nico Collins? No Tank Dell. Obviously, unfortunately, a great season for himself comes to an end with the broken fibula or whatever it was there in the end zone. Just rough seeing him get in that scrum and not come out just healthy. So sucks to see that. But Nico Collins up to 7,600 now. I believe he was 6,800 last week. Garrett Wilson, same game, by the way. I don't know who his quarterback's going to be, but 5,500 seems crazy low for a guy with talent, but you got to get him the ball too. It's tough.
Yeah, another game with likely rain and likely wind. So, I think that really nerfs these guys' options. That plus the game flow, plus these offenses, plus the total. I would say I'm just not ready to believe that Nico Collins is a wide receiver one. I know he had a great week last week, but 7,600, if I were going to pay it, it would have to be in the dome against like the Chiefs. I'm sure shit ain't going to do it at the Jets. So Nico Collins will be a hard pass.
The Jets have smashed Noah Brown too. It's like, 5,000, obviously nice, and I like Noah Brown's been great all season, but more to the points you just previously made, just because someone's out doesn't mean you need to go into a situation where it may not be as strong. The Jets do still have a pretty good defense. They are at home. It looks like there's weather. The total's super low. Like all those factors to me matter a lot more than just, but this guy's out. I think, I'm not a big matchups guy, but I don't just slide people into plays either just because that. I look more at the situation overall. Let's move on. Let's go to Mini LV here. It's in Las Vegas. What do we got in this one? Is it Dobbs O'Connell?
I think so. Well, my bigger question is, what's the word on Justin Jefferson? Hasn't he been trending towards being back? Is this the week he's finally back?
It was supposed to be. I thought they said week 14, right?
Smells like shootout. Some slapdick cheap quarterbacks to stack, and then now you've actually got you've got Joshua Dobbs with some weapons who can be a serviceable quarterback. I don't hate it, Bob. And it's in a dome, and neither of these teams play particularly great defense. It smells like a sneaky game to me.
Another one of these games, that 40-point total, they're all just sitting there. It's like, oh, you can't play it. You and I have talked all season. There's been 37-point totals where we've seen guys multiple put up 25 to 30 DraftKings points for very cheap price tags. Again, talk about value, forget about total. Let's talk about, instead of total points, fantasy points. That's what we've seen. So I don't hate that call. Who else here in this game? Is there anything else that you can get to in this one?
Let's see. Josh Jacobs at 6,900. Nice. He's actually got he just has such incredible steady volume at a competitive game at home. Definitely will probably have some Josh Jacobs in my lineups. I'm just a slut for that guy. And then I'm open some stacks, right? Some cheap stacks. Let me get in there. And then if I'm playing a cheap stack in this game, I can go afford the guys from the Buffalo and KC game and shit like that.
Oh, we're going to get there, my friend. Only 3 games left after this, so we've already made it to the afternoon set, so we are making good time. If you guys have more questions and you want to throw it in, Sean says from earlier, the Bryce Hall and Jets D combo. I actually don't hate that. Again, like I said, obviously the spread will have you think that the Texans are going to just walk into New York and handle it because they've got Stroud and they've got everything else going on, but the Jets are, again, I think they're still for real as far as the defense is concerned. The challenge is, can they put up any offense? But to your point, and we talk about this all the time, you're building your lineups for a storyline. If this, then that, I would say for the chance for the Jets to be into it, it's going to be running the ball with Breece Hall or checking it down to him and letting him do some work to keep Stroud off the field. And in turn, if Stroud starts making mistakes and they're picking up short yardage and short field situations, that's going to be a better spot for Hall as well. So it would make sense to me, and I actually don't hate that call. Remind me of it later in the week when I completely forget about it. I like the Jacobs call. I guess Hawkinson in the stacks. Do you like the Dobbs side better here at 5,900? Like just go Dobbs, Jefferson, and cut it off there, even if you want.
Yeah, Dobbs, Jefferson, run it back with Jacobs would be like my first thought. Yep.
Yeah, I like that one too. Okay, what has Jacobs been up to lately? Just let's see here.
Very solid and just very consistent. Like, I mean, I'll take, those are solid weeks.
And even this week here is like reminiscent a little bit of like the Zach Moss situation. Like he's still getting 14 carries. He's still getting targets. It's like one of those things. Yeah, a guy's going to have a bad week, but we can't really live that way in the NFL. There's just there's only so many weeks anyway. So from that perspective, you got to think of it that way. Brock Purdy. So this game's interesting because it's, it starts a little bit early, but you do have 4 games in the afternoon being an 11-game slate, but you do have the Buffalo KC game coming up next. So how do you see this playing out? Because this one looks like it could be a pretty good spot too. Again, we'll have to wait and see, but in general, on paper, I think there's some plays in this game. And then we obviously have seen Brock Purdy. What is it now? 2 of the last 3 Millie Maker winners have had Brock Purdy in there, 1 unstacked, 1 stacked, but still he's been in a lot of places lately and he's up to 6,500, but it's not super expensive or anything for a guy that's been putting up 30, 32, and 2 of his last 3, 24, 20. I mean, this talk about earlier with Lamar Jackson even at 7,700 looks great on paper, but 6,500, you got a guy that just dominates him all the time, including the most recent week. So give me your thoughts on this game.
I mean, over a 28-point total for San Francisco. I believe that's the highest on the slate, right? So basically Vegas is saying they're going to score at least 4 touchdowns. And when they score at least 4 touchdowns, Brock Purdy is very likely to be involved in at least 2, if not 3 of those, right? And at 6,500, it just starts to become math that he only has to throw for 250 yards. And if he has 3 touchdowns on that, he's automatically going to have a good game. And the best thing Brock Purdy does is he doesn't try to do too much. He realizes he has studs all around him. He gets them the ball and says, go do your magic. Like if I were running a cash lineup this week, Brock Purdy would just be an auto lock, instant guy in there. At GPPs, I worry he's going to get pretty popular with that big team total. I think Seattle could actually push the pace of this game. Don't forget the last time we saw Seattle, they looked like world beaters going into Dallas and scoring like 900 points, right? So I think a lot of people are going to want to get into this game maybe as a way to try to get off some of that Kansas City Buffalo chalk.
Yeah, I want to see too. What was the score? Do you know of the last game? They just played a couple weeks ago, right? Seattle, and so it was Thursday, November 23rd. It was a Thursday night football game. The 49ers won 31-13 is what the score was, and that was in Seattle. Obviously, they flip-flop division games. So they're going back now to San Francisco. Back to that in a second. Should note real quick. Dollar Bill brings up a good point. Yeah, they're on the bye. They are making the decision on the quarterback. I think they have at least. 3. They got 3 guys to choose from, right? With Hall, Mullins, and then Dobbs. So yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I don't know. They went and got Dobbs. You think they would go there again? But who knows? Maybe not. We'll have to see. So Seattle, San Francisco, though, the second of division games, it always is one of 2 ways, right? It's either going to be completely underwhelming, and you're like, oh, they already just watched all the tape on them from last time where San Francisco put up. I guess that would be my angle here, James. Is like the last time they played was just 2 weeks ago. And Seattle gets to go back. I'm not saying they're going to be world beaters like what they just did with Dallas. I actually think it would go the other way. I don't expect Seattle to put up a bunch of points, but maybe they can slow San Francisco down some because of that and just seeing it. I know it's tough to slow San Francisco down, but it is possible. So just to say it from that perspective, this game gets extremely popular. That will be something to look at. And then you talk about all these points. I mean, this is the best matchup on the board. So you have to think, not the best overall, but I think it's like the top 3 on the board. You have to think McCaffrey is going to get love. There's a ton of value this week at wide receiver. At corner, we talked about you can get mid-tier guys in there at pretty good price tags on top of the cheapies in guys like Zay Jones that we talked about. So, 9,200 McCaffrey is going to be no problem for people to fit. Again, maybe not in this exact lineup because I already have Chase and Pittman. I'm just messing around as we go along, remembering things. But any other thoughts to that? Because I think that's where people end up going here, and maybe you don't see. I think
Kenneth Walker being back would lend some credibility to that, right? I think he was trending towards being back after the bye here. So if Kenneth Walker's back, I think that makes Seattle's running game a lot more sustainable and more potent. And I think that could make this game, maybe slow it down where they could keep it and maybe not let San Francisco score 35 points this week. So that'll be something I'll be monitoring. I just don't know that this is the game I want to get into, but at the same time, every week when I don't have a piece of San Francisco, they just boat race my ass. I just watch my lineups just moonwalk backwards as they score 800 points.
Yeah. And someone brought up earlier, JSN. I do like that play. There was definitely some, force feeding of the ball to him last week, and I think that could continue. He had a touchdown that Who knows what a catch is anymore? I mean, it looked like it was fine, but who knows? So then it went to a 3-touchdown game. So funny enough, this is the battle of the back-to-back 3-touchdown games because Metcalf had 3 and then Debo goes out and gets 3. Now we'll probably see 0 amongst those two, but still anything could happen. You could get after it and chase those plays. Again, I don't see much else here in this one. We'll save this one till last. Let's go Denver at the Chargers. And this is the second of the 2 latest games on the day, second last game of the slate that we'll be talking about here in the 11 games. Denver at Chargers. First look at this one. What do you got?
It feels right. A late game, it will certainly, I would say, be the lowest owned, like total ownership of these final 3 games we're covering here. And because of that, I feel like there's some real chances to get in here. It's in a dome. We know that the Chargers can have a real good offense at home. We know that the Broncos sometimes can push the pace of a game. They have had a pulse offensively recently. So this strikes me as a game that maybe this is the game that I have, even if I don't build my lineups around this game, maybe I have a plan based on how it goes early to get off of some of the San Francisco-Seattle guys and pivot to this game, right? That's kind of what I'm thinking. This seems like a really nice pivot option with some low-owned, high upside guys. That's kind of how I feel like I'm going to use this game.
No, another reason I love this show, I know we always make fun of the chat when they're saying why are you doing this on a Tuesday? We always laugh about it. This part of it too, if you're taking notes and writing it down, this is a very good slate for late swap. You have at least 3 games in the afternoon that you can get a part of. If you want the one we're about to get to, KC Buffalo, I understand why, but if you want that one, you can get into it. If you need to move off games or get to other spots, I think this game, Denver at the Chargers, pretty interesting. I think San Francisco, Seattle could be a case to be made there. Maybe that's the one you think goes under. I don't know. And you might just have to pivot to it if other stuff doesn't go your way. But man, I made fun of this guy last week and I'll continue to do it. They talk about Russ cooking. He's the cook. All right. He gets the HelloFresh package. He gets the exact recipe. And there's someone standing over his shoulder that says, you try to put extra spices on that? Absolutely not. You can't do nothing more, nothing less. 18, 17, 15, 18, 18, 14. The guy just does exactly what he is supposed to do. You just never see it. And then the other side of it, like you said, $200 less than Lamar Jackson is Justin Herbert, who is basically Lamar Jackson. It's there's going to throw a 30, going to throw some 25s and some 30s in there, going to throw some 7s in there with some 15s. It's really hard. But you talked about him being at home. Both these guys on paper look like pretty good matchup spots. I think I do want pieces of this game either way. I like Eckler at just 7,600. I obviously like all these guys. I know Keenan Allen was a little bit banged up last week. They still fed him 9 targets, and that was his lowest targets really on the season since when? Since
Ever?
week 4?
Yeah.
Because he's had 9 in other weeks and he still got the 9, but 16, 16, 14, 10 mixed in there. Really 8,600. I know it's up there, but just to point it out, I mean, there's definitely opportunity there. It's hard to get excited about these Denver guys because they've got Russell Wilson throwing the ball. Obviously, Sutton continues to come through, but he's the same guy. Yep. He's part of the combination of the recipe. He's just the guy that's put into that same recipe I just talked about. The guy over his shoulders, it has to be Sutton. Look at this. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. But can he get 2? I don't know. Maybe this is the week, or maybe he goes back to 0, but seems like he's always just getting 1. So chat brought it up too. Javonte been getting a lot of work. What's his situation here? 13, 18, 11, 21. He's getting the targets some. What's that matchup like too? I think it's pretty good on the ground. Yeah, pretty much everything against the Chargers. This game actually.
Chargers are defense optional.
Yeah, that's true. But what would your take be on this then? Let me look at this. Let's go back. Or is this their first game against Denver? Right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't remember them playing earlier in the year.
No, they don't. So that's the other thing I like about. So this game over here is the second game, and it's within 2 weeks. Yep. So again, not saying they will slow them down. It's very hard to imagine anybody slowing down the 49ers, let alone it's going to be the Seahawks after just getting crushed by them for 31 points just a couple weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. But I could see it here where this game actually is a better environment overall, and it's kind of harder to make picks. Pick your spots, I should say, not just make picks, but part of your process of going out and picking your spots. It's I like Keenan Allen, but he's 8,600. Cortland Sutton, yeah, he might get me that touchdown, but he's 6,100. Tight end, do I really want to play these guys? I'm not sure. So this game feels harder to stack up. And I think if you were late swapping or trying to get to something different in the afternoon, I think this is the spot I would prefer right now, at least, to go over Seattle, San Francisco. Do you have a different angle on that?
No, I'm with you. I'm the same way. Like this game and then that Minnesota Las Vegas game, I'm going to have a plan how I can pivot to those games if things aren't going well. But also maybe be able to get off of those games to the chalkier games if things are going well.
Yeah, I really do like that call. And I forgot about that one too. That's part of the afternoon mix as well. I know it's one of the earlier ones with Seattle, San Francisco, but the Minnesota Raiders game could be something as well. And then let me ask you this as the segue into this final game. We're only 45 minutes in, so we got lots of time here. If you guys have more questions, throw them into the chat. But just in general, if all else, if nothing else is there, and this you can pick whatever game you want in this afternoon slate. I know this looks like the best game on paper, but to some people that's not true. If nothing else mattered, would you actually pick this game, or do you like any of those other games more than this one on the entire slate as a whole?
I think so many people get caught up, especially at main slate, wanting to focus on the teams with the star power. And with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, this game has all of that, right? But what people fail to realize is whenever you attack a game, you also have to think of how much of your salary are you giving over to that game, right? Like if you go play Diggs and Allen and run it back with Kelsey, you have given up such a vast amount of your salary that if this game doesn't ultra cook, I'm talking 35-31 type game with, 900 yards of offense, you ain't going to be able to get there. You're going to need those 90 percentile outcomes from your star players. And so the biggest thing that I have a problem with these games is you end up tying up so much of your salary in one game that even if it's just a nice solid game, a 27-24 game, that often those guys are never going to be able to get you that 100 points you're going to need for the $24,000 in salary you gave up to really give you a chance at GPP. So I tend to avoid these games and just try to come in here and get an affordable piece, whether that's a Pacheco or a Cook or a Dalton Kincaid. Just grab a piece of this game because I don't want to fade it, but not go overweight and invest all of my salary in it.
Yeah, and I will say this too, because this is a common thing that gets brought up, and people always go what have you done for me lately, or what have I seen lately, right? What happened last time? We talked about this actually last game like this, which was the Buffalo Bills at it was Buffalo Philly. I forget where it was for that one, but Buffalo versus Philly, and it was almost impossible between for example, first of all you had to pick between Allen and Hurts. Yep. Then you had to pick the expensive Diggs or AJ Brown. What ended up getting there was a perfect storm of Gabe Davis. Shakir didn't even do anything, but at 9 points or whatever he had, he still fell into the mix. And then it ended up being Devontae Smith and not AJ Brown. So to most people that see that, James, I think they're well, see it can happen so easy. Let's just do that again. Could it happen again? Yes. We're not saying it can't. We're just saying, remember, the perfect storm kind of did happen. If that game had have went 2 touchdowns to AJ Brown and 2 to Diggs, that whole slate would have looked a little bit different everywhere else because you would have had to sacrifice quite a bit within your lineups to be able to make something like that fit. And sure enough, look here, you've got about 5,300 left. And I'm using Rice just because on their squad, you could plug in a Watson or something and say that they're kind of the secondary. But realistically, let's plug in someone for real here that we can see doing it and keep fair prices. You got about 5,300 left. But even if you say, you know what, I'm going to switch it up here. I'm going to see, I think it's going to be Mahomes. It's going to be a Kelsey bounce back. And it's going to be a Diggs. I mean, you dropped 1,000 per spot that you don't have just by switching it to that. And again, you say, well, what's that mean? Why are you going into this? My point is you could easily see a game here where it's 2 Kelsey touchdowns and 2 Diggs touchdowns, and this game goes off. How do you fill this out? You have to find that. So I'm typically against Mahomes on main slates because I think there's too many ways to go with him that you have to kind of figure it out. They literally almost always you're seeing them use 7 to 8 receivers. You don't know who it's going to be, all that. So you have to commit a bigger portion of your portfolio to it. I'm with you, though, on the original take. This game pretty much has to go nuclear for it to happen. It's in Arrowhead. Kansas City has a very good defense. Chris Jones and the boys up front there. I mean, they're going to want to get after Allen. Allen's been known to make mistakes. I could see in this game, instead of what everybody else is doing, I could just plug in Pacheco and a $2,600 Chiefs and call it a day and find another spot. I'm just being honest. I really do like this as the starting point here on a Tuesday. That's me. I'll kick it to you. What's your thoughts on using some of the guys within this game?
I think so many people are going to be affected by remembering that crazy playoff shootout game at Arrowhead between Buffalo. What was that? Was that last year or the year before? Just absolute insane game. And I think people still have that ingrained in their mind, and they just assume that every time these two teams play that it's going to be a video game and there's going to be 1,000 yards of offense and 70 points scored. And like, you got to remember that in the law, like in the NFL, those games are a super rarity, right? There's a chance that like not everything's going to go perfect, and these teams won't have these crazy great outcomes. And this game is just what Vegas tells us it's going to be. It's a 24-21 game, and they have solid offensive performances, but not enough to justify those price tags. That's what I would tell you.
Yeah, I like that call too. And then that's the other thing too. Like Ross says here, we did this last night in the Discord. We hit the Mixon 2+ touchdowns. Felt like I had a little run at it there for a little bit, but I thought that his take here was pretty good. I was just going to look at that quickly. Again, if you guys have more questions, we're going to get out of here right at the top of the hour. So I want to see this, but just to look at it here, if you go touchdowns, where's this at here? Same game parlay. I don't even think I have it yet. Man, God, I hate when that happens. I wanted to see if I had it here. I don't see it yet on my book. So I'll check for it after, Ross. Don't let me forget that one. Justin says last year was 24-20 Bills. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was the 22 playoffs. 21-22 season. It was 42-36 was the score in that one.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's pretty obvious to say 50-50 here. It goes one of two ways. I get it. I'm not trying to state the obvious. I'm saying more in these big time games. We've seen it. And you're a college football guy. I remember this from years ago. One of the national championships, I think it was like Alabama, Georgia, with like a massive total. Yep. Everyone's expecting this to be nuts. And I believe the game was like 12-6 or something absolutely ludicrous, where it went it was all defense the whole way because they got something to prove. Like I said, Kansas City, pretty strong defense here. I actually like Kansas City to win this game. Again, just an early gut feel thought. I know they're a slight favorite as is, but I still do kind of like them more here anyway. It can go either way. It's hard to bet these ones sometimes when people see it, but I don't mind this one at all. Did you have any other takes on this game? I was just going to say Pacheco does have pretty good matchup here on the ground. He's been extremely consistent. Right. I'm not sure if he'll get popular because of that, because people just want a piece of this game. But again, back to my original point, I don't mind that. If Pacheco gets popular because people can't get to the other pieces, I'm still not against it. I'm not going to be all in on this or something or extremely heavy on it. I just think it's the way it is the piece that I truly like in this game. That's what I like right now. It all makes sense to me.
My final thought would be this. If the Bills are a wounded animal, right? Like, I mean, they are on the outside looking in for the playoff picture, and like they are going to have to go still a win. I do think that there could be a level of, fuck it, we're going for it this week. And Josh Allen, if you force me to play a stack from this game, I would play Josh Allen 100 times out of 100 before I would play Patrick Mahomes. That would be the stack I would consider if I were going to consider one from this game.
Yeah, and I like that call too, actually, because again, we're just putting our minds together, thinking through it as we break it down. I liked this out of the gate, and I think this is where if I have to flip things in the afternoon, or if more people are on this, I can get off it, whatever it might be. This is my starting point. But the other way, again, but Pacheco is going to be chalky. Pacheco, I called him last week. That it happens, right? He gets the ownership. That's fine. I'm with you. Again, you know me, hashtag never Mahomes. I would be happier to flip this around. And while I'm not at 5.2K, I didn't go as low as the 4.3. And you don't have to do both. Maybe you can do this and it's 4.4 now. Maybe it's a Gabe Davis and
Kincaid. Get Kincaid in there. Let's go.
4.7. Like, again, how can you play Pacheco in a different way? Is get on the stack that if not everybody can get to it. Are they? And really, you'll say, but this is where people go. Not necessarily. Like, are people really going Allen, Gabe Davis, Kincaid, and Pacheco? Like, I don't know. Are they going to overstack it if you do want to get involved and throw a Shakir in there? Now you're back up to 5K. I just don't think a lot of people are getting to it anyway. And this is true too. Not a lot of people are going to go to Mahomes because of price, narrative surrounding them, whatever. That's true. It always gets spread out anyway. We're just bringing up that if we did get here, this is where I would be trying to get to as well, in a way that I think you could get different with the Pacheco ownership that looks to be inevitable. It always seems to be the case that he's the guy getting the ownership. Any other thoughts? We've gone through the whole slate now. Anything we missed or you want to go back to? We got a few minutes here before we get out of here. Anything else that you wanted to touch on this one?
just my initial leanings, just from talking on the show, is it seems like I'm going to, and I think this is going to be popular. I don't think I'm going to like blow anybody's brains away with this idea, but it seems like I'm going to want to sprinkle the early games and have a lot more of the equity in my lineup tied up in the afternoon games. Not only because I think those games have better scoring environments, but it's going to allow me to play late swap. And just looking at those 4 late games, I feel like 2 of them are going to be pretty popular and 2 of them are going to be lesser popular. And so because of that, it will allow me more freedom to go in and tweak my lineups. And I only play about 20 lineups a week, so it's not real difficult for me at 2:30 to be like, oh shit, stuff is going well, I need to go get on some chalkier pieces, or oh damn, my early pieces did not do well, let's go try that gross ass Josh Allen stack. And so that kind of feels like where it's going to be. But as I already said, if Jameis is starting, you can throw it all out the window because we're all in on that motherfather.
I like that. And Justin said he's listed some other early looks. He's been pretty good in the chat here. We appreciate you. Justin says everyone's already out on them. People are just finally catching up to my take. It's you literally have to blow all your lineups on Mahomes if you're trying to get out. And people, but you're just playing with Kelsey. Look what happened even in Showdown the other night. It's not always just going to be Kelsey either. So you have to waste a lot of your portfolio equity on one quarterback with a bunch of options to try. Oh, but I think I'm the right Rashee Rice whisperer, so I'm going to play him with him instead. Okay, fine. But there's other ways to get there. I like a more condensed tree on the Buffalo Bills side. I just showed it here again. How do you continue to get different with this? Add Rashee Rice. How do you get Pacheco's Pacheco? Great. Cut him out. Now you got just Rashee Rice in there. Oh, it's going to be this spot. People are starting to pick up on the Josh Allen side. That's fine. Maybe you just run something like this. Kincaid and Rashee Rice, and you get a piece of that game, or add Kincaid to the Pacheco. Whatever you want to do here leaves a lot of money left over. You can still get pieces of this game. I think there will be fantasy points scored, but I think it's just dependent on how you're building out your lineups and how you feel about these other spots. That would be the other takeaway and the piece of advice that kind of we hit on already, but just of note, just because these are the premier teams that are the star power, like James had mentioned, doesn't mean this has to be the game you flip to or get on or change your stuff to or start with. There is other spots that you may like better that you can build around, and then you can just pick up pieces in this just to see. So I don't know. Anything on Joe Flacco earlier? I know the chat last week couldn't get off this guy wanting to talk about him. I saw somewhere today, I think it was Scott Barrett from Fantasy Points on Twitter, said it was the most air yards of any wide receiver on the season so far was Elijah Moore. Last game with Flacco. He threw 44 times for 250 yards plus and a couple touchdowns. And then Elijah Moore, even with all those air yards, ended up getting 12 targets. Obviously not very catchable. We got to go back and look at the model for that, but 83 yards still. 12.3 fantasy points. Any love for that stack or for Flacco in general at all?
No, I was warm to Flacco last week at the Rams in a dome against a defense that's been giving up points this year. I was for it. But at home against Jacksonville, it's just going to be run forward. I would be shocked if he throws the ball even 30 times this week. It's a different game environment. It's going to be different conditions against a different team. Joe Flacco would be the hardest of hard fades for me this week.
Yeah, Jacksonville's 3,600. Again, it's hard to pay up for defenses these days. And someone said Josh Allen naked, talking about Buffalo. But Josh Allen, you want to play Josh Allen in this game, you just play the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's on fire again last night, just having a huge game for them on the defensive side. The other Josh Allen, that is. So lots you can do on this slate. People, I think, are going to look at Flacco, though, just because of those stats that I said and because of what they saw Browning do last night. So that kind of makes me think that's going to be the setup there. But I don't know if that would make me go to the Jacksonville side as much as I would I think that the way I would leverage that, I don't even know if leverage will become a thing because I can't imagine Flacco gets super popular. But I guess my take would be if you are considering that, I would consider Jerome Ford and that Cleveland defense even, but especially Jerome Ford. I really like that matchup. I think it's better for them just to roll it that way, keep the ball out of Flacco's hands and just run it on them and see how it goes. If you think Jacksonville gets up in the game, then obviously you can set it up differently. But even then, I think we've seen games like 3, 7, 5, 7. You can see Ford get those targets as well. So I like Ford at 5,500 early on in the week. Any final thoughts from you on the entire slate? If not, talk to us a little bit more about dgen75.com, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, the final thought I have is if Jaren Hall does end up starting for Minnesota, I do kind of like him as a sneaky little player in that game environment, especially skinny stacked with our boy Justin Jefferson if he's back. I'll play both those guys back from injury and take the discount on ownership. My other big takeaway is looking at Justin. He's been great in the chat over here. I'm wondering if he wants to be the right tackle for my all Chad offensive line because we got some big dudes in there. I'm thinking Tweezy could be left tackle. I saw Dollar Bill earlier. He's already my right guard. I know him personally. So I think we could build quite the offensive line because we got some hog mollies up in this chat right here. That's my big takeaway. I'm a big lineman guy. I've got dibs on center. I'm going to make all the calls, so I still need a left guard. I know this is weird, but this is the kind of shit you get when you watch me. As far as my site goes, guys, be looking out. It's still a great time to sign up. Use the code SHIPIT, and you can get all the college football slates, all the NFL slates. It'll also apply for whenever PGA is back hot and heavy in January. I'm going to be doing all kinds of stuff, new golf stuff this year. We're going to have our show previewing the stupid prices that DraftKings puts out every week and shitting on that what are we going to do that? Monday when the prices come out. So I'm excited about that. I 1 week off from golf, and I'm already missing it, right? I know people are like, there's LPGA this week. Bro, I'm not playing any fucking whatever that tournament is this week. Shut your mouth.
The Grant Thornton, you're not in?
Yeah,
By the way, I made fun of last week, and then our guy Lee pops in the Discord, throws up some course fit rankings. He says, I know we're not officially covering it, but I'll throw these up. I threw a lineup into the $150 King of the Desert, and I shipped that too. So right off the course fit rankings, it was insane. Just basically looked at his stuff, said, let me give it a shot and see what happens. I think it's right here. Yeah, so that was the lineup. He goes, morning all. I know we're not officially doing content for this, but I've done a course fit ranking for you guys. Okay, thanks, Lee. Thomas, Scheffler, Bradley, Fowler, Rose, Fitzpatrick, SHIPIT, done. Just that easy. So
why do I know that guy's name? Is he part of your guys' team over there?
Oh, yeah. He used to be with Fanshare. DK Golf Barkins on FanDuel does the Under the Radar article. We have it on our site now. It's called The Value Report. He does the course fit rankings for us. Just a great dude overall. We have lots of good collaborations. Obviously, you and I are going to be great together. Andy and myself are going to do a Wednesday show. We're going to have a lot of fun this golf season, crossing over and doing plenty of different stuff together. If you guys want to be a part of it, you can go now to shipitnation.com. You can use the promo code DGEN75. Get in, save yourself 10% off any of the plans. That includes the 6-month or the annual. And if you are playing NFL DFS Showdown, I know we do a lot of shows on this, but you can sign up now. We've segmented out from our education course, the 4-hour NFL course. You can go see it for free and see what you get within this, but no credit card required. Just put your email in only. We don't do a newsletter. I'd like to, but it's a lot of work. DGen knows about that. He's got a great newsletter that he puts out. Now, I can't keep up with that. It's too much extra on top, but we will send any offers that we have, and we will send you right out of the gate this free 45-minute course to get better at NFL DFS Showdown. We talk about process all the time. I think that's the best way that you can do it. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For DGen and for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it.